What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, on Sideline Sports Network and elsewhere? Welcome to the Linc'd podcast, your place where we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles on Sideline Sports. I'm here with my co-host Lindy. We got a lot of stuff to get into. The Eagles are 7-1. Heart racing win against the Commanders last week. It's Cowboys week. Big game this week. Definitely a big game. We all know why. And then we're gonna get to Lindy's lame stats and all this different stuff, man. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. What's up, Lindy?
We sure do. Jam-packed before the bye. Didn't give us quite the presentation we wanted against Washington. I was bamboozled yet again from last week. But yeah, so we got a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, man, we do got a lot, and let's not waste any time. Let's get to the game from last week. The Eagles had another nail biter against the Washington Commanders, where they ended up pulling it out at the end of the game, but it was not a good game, or it wasn't really the game that we wanted to see from the team or what we expected. When we were on the show last week, we both said whatever stuff happened against the Commanders was not going to happen this time because the team was going to come out and they're going to be prepared and they're going to dominate. And that's not what happened. So, Lindy, what went wrong for the Eagles last week and how did they manage to get it together to pull out a win?
I don't necessarily think that there was a whole lot of I don't think it's more of what the Eagles didn't do. I think it's more of what Washington did, especially with how well, once again, Sam Howell played. There was a couple of things that factored in here, to allow a kid to allow a second-year quarterback, first year starting, much how we dealt with the same thing with Jalen Hurts, for him to go out there and pass 52 times for almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had the interception, which was a great play by Reed Blankenship. QBR of a 70 out of 100. A lot of negatives across the board. Defensive line was pretty much a non-factor for most of the game until they came up clutch in the fourth quarter. And, it kind of reminded me going back to some of the Jim Schwartz days where, it was fourth quarter situations, living by the blitz, dying by the blitz. A lot of times it worked. And, Hassan Reddick has been awfully clutch with that as of lately. So shout out to him. But my biggest issue here is that, you look at it from an offensive standpoint for the Commanders, and for an offensive line this year being as historically bad as they are in giving up sacks, this Eagles defensive line sacked Sam Howell one time. One time. They got to him one time. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, but who got to him? Who was it?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't put a finger on it.
I don't know if it counted as a sack, but I want to talk about Hassan Reddick.
I have the box score up here.
Hassan Reddick is clutch. Every time that the team needs Hassan Reddick to make a play, he does it.
It was him.
Yeah, the strip sack. Of course, it was him. And it was the play on fourth down. Should have been a strip sack, but it was fourth down anyway, so turnover on downs. Hassan Reddick is second in the league this season in fourth quarter pressures. Guess who's first? Take a wild guess.
Would have to assume it might be.
He's on the Eagles. Carter. He's on the Eagles. They're both on the Eagles. Josh Sweat is number one with 17, and Reddick is second with 15. So, as I said, anytime the team needs a bad defense played, anytime you need somebody to make a play, Hassan Reddick is going to make the play. It doesn't matter double team, doesn't matter what people try to do. He comes up biggest in the biggest moments. So, great job by him. The story of this game has to be, as some people are calling him, Kenny No Gain Gainwell.
No.
the story of this game and thing that was so frustrating was the turnovers in the red zone. Obviously, 2 turnovers in the red zone. The tush push actually got stopped for a change.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations to Washington for actually stopping the play. But bad snap by Kelsey. Hurts doesn't clearly get it. Fumble on the 1. So points off the board there. And then Kenny Gainwell fumbles the ball inside the 2-yard line. And that's another touchdown taken off the board. So 14 points potentially was taken off the board. So if you think about it, the Eagles could have put up 50 points on this team. But because of the mistakes, they did not. Against the Dallas Cowboys, this absolutely cannot happen. Absolutely cannot happen. And to make things worse, I want to get your thoughts on this, but Kenny Gainwell texting fans that are talking trash to him on Instagram at halftime. Listen, man, your head is not in the right place. And I would say this not to Kenny, but any player that does this, like, you are in a game. This is what all your focus needs to be on. It does not need to be about the outside crap, especially coming from Eagles fans, because you know Eagles fans are going to let you hear what's going on. They're always going to do it. So his head's in the wrong place. It's not good. He's not looking good on the field. This is not what you wanted to do. After having a performance like this, then getting on your phone, the coaches and people spoke to him about it. But yeah, Kenny, your head is not in the right place. I don't think that going forward, you don't want to be having any kind of distractions like this. But Lindy, what was your thoughts on that?
It's almost like you at your full-time job, you reach your first break or your second break on shift, or even your lunch, and you go outside of the building, you're trying to rid yourself of all the distractions that you got going on in the middle of your shift, and you're just trying to take that mental break in between, and his was pretty much the wrong one. So I mean, who knows how many other players do this, and a lot of times we have no idea until stuff like this happens, where it's kind of exposed on social media. I think with the situations and the lack of exposure, that it could be potentially happening with other players. Kenny just so happened to get caught, and wrong place, wrong time yet again, and it's just, I hear Sirianni saying that he's the second best back on this roster. Well, if you have a responsibility of being so when DeAndre Swift is not on the field and you're doing this, your head in the game, man? I mean,
I'm not sure what happened. I mean, last year when it was him and Miles Sanders, like, Kenny Gainwell had a really strong postseason.
Yeah, we haven't seen that guy.
And this season, we have not seen anything at all from him. So I don't know what's going on with it, but it is a serious problem.
I don't even think it's also a factor of a different offensive coordinator in here, because I think I think a lot of their games, they have balanced out the run and the pass very well outside of the Jets game, if you will. But they've been doing a really good job of balancing between the run and the pass, and it's just, I mean, I don't know, man. Where's DeAndre Swift? He's not getting enough carries. It's almost like the way they treated Miles Sanders last year, and he barely seen 20 carries in some games, and they were keeping him around 13 to 16, and as much as maybe 18 or 19 in very few games, like 1 to 3 games out of the year, he's seeing close to 20 carries. I don't know if it's like a load management sort of thing. You're afraid of his injury history, but just about every time he touches the football and makes the cuts that he does, it's almost Shady McCoy-esque in how he's able to do it, and how dynamic of a player he is on the field. And it's just, where are his opportunities right now? And I get it. The passing game's working, and AJ Brown is his teammate who just broke, who broke the record. Now he's the new record holder for 6 straight games of 125 reception yards or more. Passing Calvin Johnson, Megatron. I mean, it's kind of hard to see the football when you got somebody dominating like that. And
So this is a question I have. And Grizz just brought this up in the comments. He says, we need more Swift, maybe more Penny, but less Gainwell. What is going on with Rashad Penny? You signed him in the offseason, and you pretty much have not used him whatsoever. I don't even remember when was the last time that I saw him in the game. Maybe against Minnesota.
Yeah,
I don't even remember the last time that I saw him on the field. Maybe I'm crazy, but tell me I'm wrong. So
it was week 2, and he had maybe 3 carries.
So
3 carries.
Obviously, Gainwell is not producing that much. I'm not saying Rashad is going to come in and do something crazy, but just see what he can do. Boston Scott was out at practice because of personal reasons, but the hell, give Boston Scott some of Gainwell's carries. Because Boston Scott has shown when he's gotten the ball over the last few years, he's been able to make plays. So Gainwell is not making plays. The run game, especially this game against the Cowboys, which we're going to get to later, it's so important that the Eagles are able to run the ball effectively because it creates more opportunities for the offense. So this stuff is not working. It was not really the greatest performance by the Eagles, but it is what it is. You got to take it. It's a win, 7-1, best record in the NFL. Got to get to 8-1. And that's pretty much it.
The Eagles would have had a 100-yard rushing game if it wasn't for 1 yard off in Kelly Green week against the Dolphins. They had a 4-week stretch from week 2 to week 5 where they had 100 or more rushing yards. 2 of those games, they exceeded 200. This team, I get it. I get the passing game right now. It's lethal with AJ Brown. You got to run the football. You have week in and week out, you claim and you statistically have the best offensive line in football. And it goes like on a weekly basis on how well they play and whatnot. And right now they're kind of on a, in a downstream kind of feel and giving up, I think it's like 40-ish pressures in the last couple of weeks or so, which is not great.
I will say this about that. I think that when you're talking about this type of stats, context matters.
Yeah, it does.
Because I think that number is not really accurate because we know the type of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is. And Jalen Hurts holds the ball longer and he tries to extend plays. Even with the injury, he's still doing it, extending plays. And that's where I think like some of those more pressures come into that stat. So I'm not really too concerned about the O-line at this moment.
I'm not either. I mean, they're built to perform better than this anyway. And we'll see with this week being Dallas week how Tyler Steen performs. I think he had
pretty good after he came in the game last week.
Yeah, it came in for Suopeta. I think it was 4 straight reps in a row where he had great reps. And
Peta has been getting beat up like the last couple of weeks. We can point to like a few plays where, he was getting beat. So the Eagles made the decision at the right time, I think.
And I can't necessarily be surprised either because the Eagles spent a pretty decent value draft pick on Tyler, who, is a
third round
combo player. being able to play guard and tackle. So I do like the idea of moving him inside alongside Lane Johnson. And we've seen pictures and footage of them practicing with each other throughout the week. So I'm kind of excited for this in terms of like a temporary substitution. It's going to give
Yeah.
this kid a chance while Cam Jurgens is not going to be playing to show what he can do. And that only adds value to the rest of our core because it's guys in like
You got to
the
have depth at
second
these positions,
string
man.
getting the reps. So I'm happy for him, but I'll also be happy when Cam Jurgens is ready to come back from that foot injury, which
All
he should
right.
be eligible.
All right. That's about all
Eligible.
we have time for with this subject, Lindy. What is the Lindy Lame stat of this week? Talk to me.
Unfortunately, we have two of them for this one, and one we've kind of already touched upon a little bit in terms of the run game. Um, Again, I go back to it here. The Eagles have had a pretty rough streak going on of 3 straight games where they haven't been able to eclipse 100 yards. And yes, they hit 99 against the Dolphins, but it's not the 99 that we're accustomed to. We were only able to get 59 of them on 22 carries against the Commanders. Against the Jets, we only seen 80. So, week 2 against the Vikings, 259. Week 3, 201. Week 4, 104. Week 5, 159. This is a team that's meant to, both overpower you in the trenches with the run game and getting those guys out in space. The Jordan Mailatas, the Landon Dickersons. That's one of Jason Kelsey's favorite things to do is to get out in space for, as undersized as we have known him throughout the years at that position. And now he's played himself into a Hall of Famer. Lane Johnson is pretty much playing himself into Hall of Fame status as well. Aside from pass blocking, these guys love to run the football,
Yeah, of course they do.
or, take that tight end screen, for example, with Dallas Goedert and Jordan Mailata leading the way. Those are the kind of things that we love to see aside from running the ball. So, I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? 59 yards and 22 carries, to say the least. It's abysmal, really. And it's never a good thing when you can't do both because it makes your team one-dimensional. It forces you to pass. It forces you to get into uncomfortable situations, and especially when your offense has a hard time of adjusting, to which earlier in the year Brian Johnson did have that issue, but I got to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of us have to do as well. He has coordinated this offense. Despite all that, despite the red zone issues, despite everything else, this team is the third best scoring offense in the NFL at 28 a game. And they're only behind 0.1 to the Dallas Cowboys, who are a little more efficient of a team in scoring the football because they have played one less game, but they have fewer points. They are at 28.1. So all things considered, for a first-year offensive coordinator, that's pretty darn good. You're going to take that. The second thing, I don't know what has been going on with the secondary, but they seem to be slowing down. They seem to be making rookie mistakes in terms of veteran talk, like James Bradbury, for example. I have no idea what happened to him. There's plays where he's looking in the backfield when he should be focusing on who he's up against in coverage, especially against Terry McLaurin. We've seen Commanders games in the past, especially last year, where we were watching Slay shadow Terry McLaurin and pretty much shut him out. We're not seeing any of that this year, and I'm not sure why. So aside from some of the yards coming in garbage time, the Commanders did have a garbage time touchdown. Let's keep it real there. Giving up 472 yards of total offense to the same quarterback that abused you in the first matchup in your own house. And here we were thinking last week that the Eagles play better in Washington against the Commanders than they do at the Link, or I at least thought that. And well, again, I was bamboozled into the fact that it wasn't the case yet again. So going over that game again, it's just I'm watching how the Commanders operate, and
Yeah.
a lot of what they were doing was just taking advantage of the quick game. Sam Howell was getting the ball out faster than than our defensive front can get to him. He was being very efficient in that. Throws were on time. He's having better anticipation. It's a second-year quarterback that's getting better in the system, and he has Eric Bieniemy behind him at the coordinator spot. So I mean, there's a lot of things working for Sam that he's trying to overcome, especially with the offensive line giving up as many sacks as they have already. But it's like you still can't take this team lightly. One, being a division opponent, and two, that they have the sort of leadership that they do, especially when Eric Bieniemy is your offensive coordinator. They just called they called a very good game, and well, unfortunately for them, it wasn't enough in the end because the Eagles just showed that they were the better team. But you know, ag- against good teams, and yes, Washington is not a good team, but they're on the rise in trying to find stability in the quarterback position, and Sam Howell's making a case for himself. You look at his stats here, a QBR of 70. Yeah, he throws for 52 times, almost 400 yards. Can you imagine if you play this sloppy at home against the Cowboys on Sunday, what they would do to
Can't
you
let it
if
happen.
you allow this again?
Cannot let it happen.
Or even Kansas City, who's dealing with injuries right now. This is one of Patrick Mahomes' least talented receiving cores,
But here's
but it's
here's
still
my
Patrick
rebuttal. Here's
Mahomes.
my rebuttal to this.
So
The sky is blowing for the Eagles defense after this game. I completely understand. However, did this same defense not just hold the Miami offense that put 70 points on somebody? Did they not hold them to 7 points? Because Jalen Hurts had the fumble and the pick six. So they got 10 other 17 points off of a fumble, which was pretty much a layup for the field goal, and then the pick six. So the offense pretty much only scored 7 points. So the Eagles defense had moments in that game when they were bending, but when they had to show up, they pretty much shut the Miami offense down. So we know that they can do it. So that's why this week I'm expecting a bounce back game by the defense. And everyone's talking about the defense right now, but Slay, Bradbury, they're hearing all the noise. And I'm expecting to see a bounce back game from them.
The one overlay that I have on here, I think, is a pretty good indicator and kind of a hint as to why a lot of this is happening. The Eagles have had a different group in the secondary just about every single game that they have played up until this point, where they've been dealing with injuries. Week 1, you had Maddox, you had Justin Evans. And, week 2, Avonte Maddox is still there, and we end up losing him. Going into the Buccaneers game. Josh Jobe has to come in for Bradbury because I think he was dealing with a concussion after the Patriots game. So it's like, you can tie this back to 2020, where we were dealing with how many different offensive line combinations, and it just spelled disaster for just about every game the Eagles played that year. It was just such an unorganized mess in trying to figure it out. So you figure how difficult that must have been for the offense as a whole and Jeff Stoutland to try and figure all of this out. Sean Desai, man, I mean, you're putting Band-Aids on just about every spot here, trying to work out of it, to the point where you just pick up Kevin Byard at the trade deadline, and he played and Kevin Byard played every single snap. That's wild to me. So, I mean, I understand, and not sure what happened to James, but he'll obviously be back, fellas. But we have to think of it like this. Yes, Kevin Byard is a veteran. He's a veteran. He's been in these kind of, I have to assume he's been in these kind of situations before where, his time in Tennessee with the Titans, the secondary has been, this the secondary has been shorthanded, here and there. He's having to do a lot more work than he's used to. But I mean, you look at it again, between him and Reed Blankenship, they play 100% of the snaps. They play all the defensive snaps, Slay, Bradbury, and then you're trying to mix in a little bit of the other guys there. It's just between the different combinations that you have, and you get a guy off the trade deadline who you're trying to get these fixes to go, and it's unfortunate, really. But at the same time, you add the snaps in there. He's getting the experience in the Eagles defense, and hopefully by then he'll be suited up and ready to go against Dallas, which there's already highlights out there of, the patented standing on the star after, he picked off Dak Prescott in the end zone. I think a lot of Eagles fans know of that one. Like, this kid was born and raised in Philly. So he's going to definitely be excited for that one. But while James is making his way back in here, and
sorry for the technical difficulties, but I'm back. We left off with the Lindy lame stats. Lindy, where'd you leave off at?
I already covered where, the situation with the secondary troubles and everything. And, it's bottom line. I wouldn't look too deep into it. Sean Desai's having to do a lot of extra work with guys getting hurt and coming back. And, you bring in Kevin Byard to fix things. He's playing every single snap against the Commanders, but it's a lot of preparation that's being put into place, especially for the Dallas Cowboys coming up. And I think a lot of the errors will be ironed out once there's some stability at the secondary position.
Okay. So let's talk about what people are saying about make Hurts throw. I have a stat for you guys, and I was very much bamboozled by this stat, but I don't know to feel good or bad. Jalen Hurts, when the Eagles are leading this season, 63.6% completion, 1,059 total yards, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 67 rating. When the Eagles are tied / trailing, 72.7% completion, 1,361 total yards, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 118.7 rating. Jalen Hurts is clutch. Jalen Hurts this week, 319 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So Jalen Hurts, as much as people have been saying that Jalen Hurts regressed, I don't think so. I think that, sure, like some of the turnovers that happened was definitely his fault. Some of them were not. A lot of these interceptions, the ball, I don't know how the hell the ball bounces and then somebody's just there and picked. Like that Dallas Goedert interception that happened against the Jets is still in my head rent-free. Like, I don't know how the hell that stuff like that happens, but it's happening. Jalen Hurts has been forced to win as a passer this season, especially like right now, because he's banged up. His knee is banged up, and he can't really run like we're used to seeing him run. There's a lot of plays that we know Jalen would have ran, but he didn't. He's picking teams apart in the pocket. And even when nobody gets open, he extends the play. Like the 4th down play against Miami, escapes from the pocket, finds A.J. Brown on 4th down for the completion down at the 1. That's definitely one of the best plays I've seen him make this season. Jalen Hurts is like, he's that kind of guy. Like, he really is a franchise quarterback. Whether he's banged up or not, he's going to make plays. So, to anybody that still doubts if he can beat you with his arm, you know that he can. So, if you think otherwise, you're in denial. But that's all I have to say on that. Lindy, what do you think?
This is why they call him cliche and boring and whatever other adjective that you
fake humble.
To,
that's my favorite one.
There you go. He reminds me of when Jordan in the playoffs against the Cavaliers, they're away, goes up to Doug Collins in a timeout. They're trying to conduct an inbounds play to somebody else, and he slams his hand on the clipboard. Give me the effing ball. Everybody get out of my way. I'm going to make this shot. That's what it run like. He has, the kid is signed to Jordan Brand, for crying out loud. He has the Jordan mentality on the football field, and I was seeing TikToks earlier this week about when he threw that dime to Julio Jones for him getting his first touchdown as an Eagle. He just walks off with the straightest look on his face, like, yeah, I did that. He doesn't celebrate with anybody, just casually walks off. I got this. I'm in control here. We're winning this football game. It's such an oxymoron situation to what we used to have with Carson Wentz pumping out his chest on certain plays, and then we gets all excited early, and then we end up losing the football game because he's not clutch at the right time. He was clutch at some points. We can give him that, especially the 2019 year where he's throwing to Walmart employees and everything. Yeah, we'll give him that. But Jalen Hurts is a completely different animal. He's cut from a similar cloth, man.
Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts is the exact opposite. Anytime the Eagles are trailing, I'm pretty much calm. Like, they're down 14-3. I mean, I wasn't happy with the way the team was playing, but I wasn't tripping about it. I was like, okay, like, Jalen is going to lead the team back, and he did. The difference with Carson Wentz, anytime the team got down by double digits, it was pretty much over. Like, it was pretty much over. He wasn't going to lead any miraculous fourth quarter comeback. The only thing that you can say about Carson Wentz is against the Panthers, games like that against the Panthers, against the Titans, the guy folded like a cheap lawn chair. Jalen Hurts not folding. He's unfoldable.
Anyway.
Sorry for the PTSD, but yeah, brought up Wentz. I had to go there. Sorry.
Yeah. Or the dropped passes by receivers such as Aguilar and J-Jaw, and no. But anyway, make Hurts throw is a similar disrespect to like earlier in Lamar Jackson's career, where they're trying to categorize this guy as, he's a running back playing quarterback. We heard the same criticism for Jalen Hurts, and it's been just about exactly the same, where these two quarterbacks, nobody respects how they throw the football. Well, Jeff Kerr of CBS on Twitter talking about, since the start of last year, Jalen Hurts in the pocket has a completion percentage of 73%, over 5,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, yards per attempt almost 9, with a passer rating of 107. First in completion rate, second in passer rating, third in yards per attempt, seventh in touchdown passes. And then at the very bottom, Hurts is this year, he's third in yards per attempt, third in completion percentage, third in passing yards, and has a passer rating of 101. So,
something tells me this guy is pretty good.
That's interesting.
So, I don't know, but I don't know. Like, I was never the best at math when I was in school, but those numbers tell me that this guy's pretty good.
Well, wait a minute. As Micah Parsons said, is it the team or is it Jalen Hurts?
The team. Well, I mean, Micah Parsons. I mean,
wait a minute.
I don't know. We're gonna have to talk about this later, but Micah Parsons been talking a little bit, just like he was talking last year. So we're gonna have to talk about that later. But you were talking about Nelson Aguilar dropping passes and stuff, giving PTSD. Let's talk about some receivers that's actually worth something. AJ Brown, which has completely made us forget about all the like receivers that we've had. He broke the record officially on Sunday, 6 straight games with 125 plus receiving yards. Had like 130 yards against Washington. This guy has done it, man. Nobody has ever done it in history. And ever since the whole thing happened on the sideline in Minnesota, he hasn't been able to nobody's been able to stop him. And do we have any reason to think that Dallas is going to be able to stop him? What do you think?
Well, I think I have to give credit where credit's due here, though. In the case of the injuries that the Cowboys have sustained, but have overcome, there's a kudos there that's involved. You know, you lose your best corner in Trevon Diggs, and then really out of nowhere, Deron Bland is first place in a lot of corner metrics across the board in the NFL between the amount of interceptions that he has. He already has 4 in 7 games. Passer rating when targeted, the amount of yards he's given up, catches, so on and so forth. He's stepped right in pretty darn well. And, you know, for any team that goes through a very bad, a very bad injury to a great player, that's all you can ask for. Between him,
sure.
Stephon Gilmore at 33 years old is still playing well. Jerron Kearse, Marquise Bell, I mean, you just have to, you got to put your hands up to that sort of thing. And, but at the same time, six straight games.
Same time, not to cut you off.
It's 6 straight games.
Not to cut you off, as far as like Deron Bland and all that. He's having a good season. Had another pick 6 against the Rams.
Yeah.
You can talk to me about the corner metrics, but I'm going to talk about you with what I've seen, what the Cowboys have done. The Cowboys have not played against a wide receiver this season as good as AJ Brown. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were giving us a hard time in the first half, pretty much shut them down in the second half. Played again. Keenan Allen had a pretty good game against them. 49ers obviously destroyed them. Going against Debo and Ayuk, but for the most part, this schedule, they played the Cardinals, they played the Patriots. None of these teams really have great receiver talent. You not only have AJ Brown, but you have Devontae Smith that quietly had 7 catches for 99 yards and touchdown last week as well. So I think that this is going to be a real test of the Cowboys, because the Cowboys currently has the 3rd best passing defense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But who have they played? They haven't played an offense like this, and they sure as hell haven't played a quarterback or a receiving core like this one. So we're gonna see, is the Cowboys defense really for real on this Sunday? And I have to be the one to say that I do not think they're gonna be ready for this. But we'll talk more about the game here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, you can arguably say that their first 4 games were against cupcake teams to this point. And aside from that, we've played two of those teams and lost to one of them, unfortunately. But nonetheless, they played the Chargers close and they had the blowout against the 49ers. And then they ended up blowing out the Rams, who, they're in a tough spot because Matthew Stafford just can't ever stay healthy. And there's the chance that he might go on IR again if he already isn't. So take of it what you will, I guess.
All right, so let's just get to the game. Eagles versus Cowboys. This is a huge game because if the Eagles win this game, they can go up 2.5 games in division, and I think 3.5 games in conference play. What are the keys to winning this game? The biggest key to winning this game, I think, is run the ball and run the ball really effectively. Dallas, somewhere in the middle of the pack of run defense. They haven't consistently been able to stop the run. And the one thing that comes to mind is that game against Arizona, where Arizona ran all over them. And the Dallas Cowboys have also been kind of like a different team on the road. They haven't really looked like as good as they have at home. They've looked much better at home than they have on the road. So this is what I'm thinking. You got to get DeAndre Swift going. This can't be another game of DeAndre Swift, 3 or 4 or 5 carries in the first half. You got to get him the ball. You got to establish the run game early and keep running the ball. Like, keep giving it to Swift. Let him make plays. Let the O-line work. And then when the Cowboys are bold enough to try to put a safety in the box, that's when AJ and Smitty going to burn them. Because you put an extra guy up there to stop the run game, boom. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, you're going to get cooked. So that's what I have to say. Establish the run game early. Get the ball to AJ Brown. Get the ball to Devontae Smith. And I think we're really going to find out that the Cowboys' defense is not as good as advertised. And the Eagles are going to win this game.
To Denzel's point in the comments, I don't believe
I don't think it matters
team,
if they double team him. You've seen him get double teamed, and he still can't be stopped. So double team him if you want.
I don't necessarily think I've noticed a team to this point that we faced really try to maintain a double on AJ Brown unless it's a deep ball and Hurts puts it right on the money, threading the needle in the perfect spot, such as against that throw on 1st and 10 against the Dolphins when there's, what was it, a defensive end or a linebacker barreling down on Hurts in his face. And
yep,
that
was a beautiful throw.
Thrown football, like, my goodness. So
and then AJ had 2 guys on him. Touchdown he scored against the Commanders.
So I mean, there you go. He's
so you can send the double team. Send it, please. I just don't think it's going to make any difference.
I think in terms of secondaries that the Eagles have faced, more pertaining to AJ Brown, I don't think any of them have been physical enough against him to really bully him. So does Dallas really have that kind of group?
Deron Bland is not going to bully AJ Brown. I'll tell you that right now. I will tell you that right now, right here. He is not going to bully AJ Brown. No, I don't think anybody in the league right now is going to be able to bully this guy.
So I think aside from that, the only other thing I could think of is a lot of, in the game of football, the offense, has to maintain being a step ahead of, the defense. So they have a hard time in figuring out what you're doing, of course. I think that's where Dallas is going to try to come in here and see if they can, outsmart us in, figuring figuring out what we're doing offensively. And unfortunately, going back to the Jets game, and we were hearing a lot of the banter after the game, and some Jets players were saying that what the Eagles were doing was predictable. And it just gives me the nightmares back to, I think it was the 2020 season, where we were told we were predictable. The Buccaneers in the wild card game were saying we were predictable. You can't have that kind of situation again. And yeah, like you were saying, biggest thing here is you have to establish the run. No questions about it. The Dallas Cowboys are giving up on average 108 rushing yards a game. You can run the football on this team. Five of their seven, five, what is it? Let me see here. One, two, okay, so three of their seven matchups, they have allowed more than 100 yards rushing.
Yep.
That's great on paper, but when 222 of them come against an Arizona Cardinals team where the quarterback now plays for the Vikings, that doesn't look very good. But across the board, they only gave up 53 against the Patriots. They gave up only 53 against the Chargers, 64 against the Jets. The Rams were only able to run at 92. Do any of those teams have...
To your point, that's also how you stop number 11. Because if you remember in that game against Arizona, Micah Parsons was pretty much nowhere to be seen in that entire game. As much as he's a great player, I have respect for him, but if you run the ball at Micah Parsons, that's how you stop him and slow him down. So run the ball right at him. The Eagles cannot be scared of Micah Parsons if they're going to win this game.
Be efficient and try and dominate time of possession this time. Just try and do it. I think both games against the Commanders, we lost the battle of time of possession. Either that or we only beat Washington the last time by maybe as much as 30 seconds or so. So I mean, they held the ball almost 3.5 minutes more than you did against them. But it didn't matter in the end. They had a garbage time touchdown. You essentially won by 2 scores because instead of us deciding to kneel, we let DeAndre Swift go in there off of the fake brotherly shove, and he sweeped it to the outside touchdown.
Sweet
there.
Play.
That was great. Well, remember, we tried that earlier. In the year, and I don't think it worked. And it might have been against the Vikings. I'm not positive on that, but it's not the first time that we've tried it. So it's just being unpredictable in those terms. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a whole lot to look into here, other than the offense needs to be as efficient as they possibly can. One good takeaway that I did have against the Commanders is that the Eagles only committed 3 penalties. That's good. And it only costed them 14 yards. You'll take that when you're being when you're being careful, when you're being careful like that, you're playing clean football. It's not a lot of false starts or holdings or that stupid ineligible man downfield that is kind of getting a little out of hand across the league. The Eagles did a good job of that in only committing 3 penalties against Washington. So, I mean, it's just going to be a tough game. It is going to be a tough game, but again, the Cowboys are coming into hostile territory.
Score prediction as we close out the show, Lindy.
I think these teams are definitely capable of scoring some points on each other. But why do I have a feeling it's going to be a low scoring game? I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be like a 24-21 game.
think so?
Yep.
I think
I
the
do.
Eagles are going to win this game 31-21. I think
You
they're
think they're
pretty
gonna?
much going to control the game from start to finish. But I think what's going to happen is Dallas is going to make it a close game late, and the Eagles are going to have one of those patented long touchdown drives, 31-21 Eagles.
What do you think? Since CD Lamb is taking most of his targets out of the slot, and right now that's kind of our biggest weak point.
They're going to move Byard. They're going to move him around. They're going
You
to
think so?
I expect him to get some reps in the slot. I would be surprised if he doesn't. They're not gonna, just let some random person guard CD Lamb. CD Lamb is gonna get the attention, and I think they're gonna be all right.
Because I mean, you don't have very many options there. Sidney Brown did not look very comfortable in that spot. Eli Ricks is still building himself as a player. You throw any of those two to the Wolves against CD Lamb, that's going to be a bad idea. So you think it's going to be Kevin Byard?
I also think the pass rush is going to be better because Grizz brought up a good point. Like
I hope so.
Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis did not play a lot in that game against the Commanders. So I think
no, they didn't.
Both of them full participants in practice this week. Both of them most likely going to be good to go.
Yeah.
These big guys going to push the inside of the pocket, and Dak's not going to have all day to throw the ball behind CeeDee Lamb. So that's what I think is going to happen.
I think this is going to be the best offensive line the Eagles D line has faced too.
Yep.
I think it is. Right. Great test.
Great
test for Dallas week.
Huge game, guys. Coming up next on Sideline Sports Network is the Gauntlet. So I will see you guys over there. Lindy, do you have anything you want to say real quick?
No, I actually don't. Not this week. I'm still trying to work on a guest for episode 2 of Linc'd in the End Zone. I have not found one as of yet, but still working on it.
Make sure you guys tune in to the LinkedIn in the End Zone with Lindy. That's his morning show he does during the week. Make sure you guys tune into that when you guys can. I will see you guys over on the Gauntlet tonight, and we will see you back here next week.